Hello one and all, I'm back once again to cover the cut content of Arifureta, this time covering what the anime changed of Hajime's reunion with his classmates, and wow, they changed a lot. I mean, seriously. There are some things I would have really loved to see animated, and some things they changed that don't make a whole lot of sense, but I'm going to get into all that, and I'm very excited for this video, and very excited to finish it, because when I do, it means I can start reading Volume 5, seeing what the future holds for this series, finding out what happens next. Oh, that'll be fun. Alright, so we start off in Horad, where Hajime has to deliver a letter to the branch chief Bawavis, something like that, from Ilwa, essentially endorsing Hajime's promotion to gold rank. And, this is a difficult time for Hajime coming back to where it all began, where it all started. The first place he's really gone back to as a changed person. And Tio, she doesn't really know Hajime's story, so she just straight up asks him, "Hey, Hajime, master, you must have some people you liked back then. Do you have any desire to go back, do things over, do things differently?" And the question definitely comes off as blunt, but Hajime really likes it. He says he likes the blunt side of her. She just straight up says what she's thinking, and I get that. I'm very much like that too. Some people like it, some people don't. I once told a woman in a yellow tracksuit that she looked like a giant banana, and she's still laughing about that 5 years later. I once told my best friend of 10 years that she was silly for thinking that Umbreon was the best Eevee, and she hasn't talked to me in 6 years. So, some people like it, some people don't. But Hajime says, if he could do it all over again, he would do every single thing the same way. He would still fall through the labyrinth. He would still go through all that hell just to meet Yui again. And that's fairly impressive given what he went through. His freaking arm was eaten! It was eaten by a bear! He literally has his entire body destroyed and rebuilt over and over again. He went through straight up days of starvation. He went through literally hell. And to meet Yui, he would do it all over again, and that is just absolutely impressive, and I love it. Though this does lead to some straight up flirting in the streets, which straight up annoys Shia, as she refers to herself as the comic relief character, and starts just screaming out loud, which Tio tries to talk her down, but then Shia calls her a pervert, and she starts writhing in pleasure, and it just becomes a whole scene so big. The guards show up to figure out what's going on, and Hajime has to essentially drag Shia and Tio away. And instead of looking at him with jealousy, everyone's just looking at him with pity for having to deal with these absolute nut jobs. Anyway, then Hajime gets the Adventurers Guild, and it's a very strained atmosphere. He doesn't know yet at the time that's because Endo just showed up a few minutes before him and announced, "The hero's party was killed by demons! The demons are way stronger than we thought! We're all gonna die, essentially! Anyone wanna go give me backup?" So yeah, they're all in a fairly bad mood, and when they see a guy show up with 3 very pretty girls, they decide to teach him a lesson. And Hajime would have usually just ignored them, but they scared Miyu, which means they need to pay. He unleashes his full intimidation on them. Some of them just straight up faint, some of them wet themselves. And then as these weathered adventurers are shaking their boots, facing a monster unlike anything they've ever seen before, he gives them a command. Smile. Yes, so Hajime wants them to smile, wants them to look friendly, so that they stop scaring Miyu. To which they all think, but none of them have the balls to say, "Then don't bring a little girl into an adventurers guild!" So they put on the best smiles they can while scared for their lives. Does not fool Miyu until, Yui comes in and calms her down a little bit, and then she, cheers up, she waves at them, and then they all get really happy, and they're like, "Oh, she's so cute," and they smile genuinely and wave back at her. So, a very interesting introduction to the Adventurers Guild. The receptionist, though, she saw all of this, and she's a little confused as Hajime walks up to her to announce he's delivering a letter to the branch chief, until he shows off his status plate, and then she screams out loud, "You're gold ranked?" Which is a little bit like a person walking into a bank and the receptionist saying, "You're depositing $1 million?" It's just not the kind of thing you do. So she's very, very sorry and apologizes for quite a few minutes, which I found really hilarious. Also, oddly enough, 10% of adventurers are gold ranked. That feels way too high. I mean, seriously, that means 1 in every 10 adventures they come across is considered the strongest of the strong, the essentially warriors chosen by God themselves. That sounds weird. I thought that would be more like 1%, maybe 5% at the most. But 10? That just feels weird. Anyway, then Endo hears there's a gold rank adventure and he pops out and then he hears Hajime's voice and he's like, Hajime, where are you? Did you become a ghost? Are you a ghost? Is that why I can't see you? And then he looks Hajime straight in the eyes, well, in the eye, I guess, and keeps looking for him because he doesn't realize that is Hajime. And somehow during this conversation, Endo also announces that automatic doors open at least a third of the time for him, which is just really, really sad for Endo. And then he finally realizes, oh, you're Hajime. Wait, you're Hajime? Hajime responds, well, I had to crawl my way out of hell. Of course I'd change, which, good answer, good answer. And Endo is fairly happy Hajime is alive, though he actually says to himself he was always jealous of the attention Kori gave him and turned a blind eye to the bullying, but he didn't want him dead, which just, you know what, screw you, Endo, screw you. You saw Hajime being dragged away by the bullies multiple times, at one point beaten within almost an inch of his life, and now you're saying you didn't want him to die? Maybe not, but you didn't do a whole lot to make sure he didn't. And, that's fairly accurate to the opinion of the rest of his classmates. Most of them decide, Hajime died because he was an idiot who ran to the battle when he couldn't do anything, even after he saved all their lives. So they all basically suck. And to make matters worse, after hearing that Hajime killed 60,000 monsters, he thinks to himself, it was possible that Hajime was stronger than himself, or maybe even Kauki. What? Your opinion of Hajime is so low that even after hearing that he killed 60,000 monsters, you think he might be a little stronger than you? Seriously? Like I said, this really goes to show how little they thought of him. Anyway, the Endo basically has a full mental breakdown, crying and wailing in the middle of the floor in the middle of the Adventurers Guild, eventually screaming out that Captain Mel died and it was all his fault, and Hajime is hurt to hear this. He wonders if he would have felt anything before he met Aiko, before he started opening up again, before he started becoming less cold. But now that he's changed a little bit, he says a silent prayer. He hopes that Captain Meld finds peace in the afterlife. Because the truth is that Meld saw potential in him, even before Hajime rushed headfirst to fight the behemoth, which just shows that he is more of a hero than Kauki will ever be. He saw potential in him. He saw that how he was able to use his synergist abilities in ways he never expected, to trap monsters, take them out. And if Hajime hadn't fallen into the abyss, if he had kept moving forward with the team, I think Meld would have worked with him. I think he would have helped him find new ways to use abilities and probably given him access to rare materials that he could use to forge powerful weapons or find ways to set traps for the monsters. Certainly wouldn't have been at Kauki's level, but he could have been a very useful member of the team. And I would have really liked to see that whole alternate timeline where that happens. Anyway, then Branch Chief Lao shows up, and he has to drag Endo to a private room, because he is really harshing the mellow of the Adventurers Hall, as he keeps screaming that the entire Heroes Party is as good as dead. Oh, I love that. Anyway, then he reads Ilwa's letter, and he finds it a little hard to believe everything that he said about Hajime, but he knows that Ilwa isn't a liar, and he knows him to be very trustworthy. He actually says, if he told me you were the Demon Lord himself, I'd still believe him. At which point Hajime replies, don't be ridiculous. The Demon Lord wouldn't even be a threat to me. Oh, I love you, Hajime. That is probably accurately the case. Hajime is more than likely the strongest human / demon / really anything alive in the world right now. I mean, maybe the gods have some angels they can send down to the mortal plane to fight him, and they'll be closer to his level, but besides that, yeah, not a whole lot anyone can do to Hajime. Anyway, yeah, so then Endo asks him, hey, come on, we're comrades, let's go save our friends. And, Hajime has to really put him in his place. I never considered you comrades, you guys are a little more than strangers. But then he stops himself and he asks, hey, is Kori still alive? And when he finds out she is, he realizes he has an obligation to her. She swore to protect him, and he never even told her that he was still alive. He owes it to her at least to go save her and to tell her that he's okay. And plus, based on what Endo told him, the monsters that the demon was controlling were no stronger than the ones he found on the first few floors of the second half of the labyrinth. So, they shouldn't be too much of a danger to him. That being said, though, he is still not crazy enough to bring Miyu with him into the abyss. So he leaves her behind with Tio to babysit her. Which is a weird move for him to make, considering that earlier in the volume, he tied her up and locked her in the closet so that she wouldn't be a bad influence on Miyu, and now he's leaving her alone with her. That's an interesting choice to make, Hajime, but you do you. It does have me wondering what's going to happen when they get to the volcano labyrinth next. I mean, who's going to look after her? I guess it could be Tio again. I mean, it could be Corey, but I kind of feel like she needs to come with Hajime, and she needs to be part of the team that clears the labyrinth so that she can get the ancient magic, because without it, there's not a whole lot she can do to be of any real use, given the vast difference in their stats. Though I suppose she could follow Hajime's example and eat monster meat. I mean, that would certainly be a painful experience, and Hajime would definitely be against it, but they have enough ambrosia left where it probably wouldn't kill her, and then she could manipulate mana directly, so I don't know, maybe. Anyway, then they race off to the labyrinth, with Hajime's goal being to reach the 90th floor in half a day. And even Endo is shocked by how much faster Hajime is than him, considering, speed is his one, good stat. Anyway, then we flash back down to the rest of his classmates as Suzu is waking up, still in the room they had concealed in the walls of the labyrinth where they're hiding. And even though she's lost a whole bunch of blood and a whole lot of mana, she's still bright and cheery and lifts everyone's spirits. And she makes a joke about how the demon pierced her. Which leads to a lot of laughs from the boys. Though the mood sours rather quickly as Kondo gets really annoyed that Kauki lost the fight, he's lost faith in him, and basically starts a fight with him, which attracts the monsters and reveals their exact location. Probably not the best time to fight. Anyways, Demon shows up. She drags out Meld, who is still alive. The rest of his knights have all been killed, but he's still barely clinging to life, and that annoys, upsets, angers Kauki enough that he charges straight at the demon, who, fun fact, is named Katleya. This is mentioned nowhere in all Volume 4, or the anime as far as I can tell, but it's said in the very first page of Volume 5. That's kind of a weird time to name a character after they're long dead, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, so then he charges straight at her, and she is basically crushed between the Ahatid, the giant horse monster, which she refers to as a precious gift. Interesting. So yeah, Kauki's lost his arm essentially and is knocked unconscious. And at this point, they start negotiating. Essentially, Katleya, the demon, she offers him, listen up, if you follow me, then we're going to put leashes on you so that you can't kill us, and you'll join our side and fight for us. And we know mind control is a thing that exists. Shimizu used to control those 60,000 demons. Well, most of them. Others just follow the ones that he was controlling. Though he did say that it requires like a full day or multiple days to control someone as intelligent as a human being, and they can't put up any resistance whatsoever. So I guess it is possible they just have to, agree to it, and they can't, be taken captive and forced to be brainwashed, essentially. Though the deal also says that they're going to have to kill Kauki because he's just way too strong. After a few moments, Eri agrees to this because, well, quite frankly, she doesn't want to die. At which point, Ryotaro refers to her as a backstabbing bitch, which, that's a little harsh. I mean, yes, I think she might secretly be a villain, but at the same time, at least in this situation, she just doesn't want to die. And Tayami quickly backs her, says it's the right thing to do. Though his goals, they're a little different, as he's very interested in this whole leash thing the demons refer to, and thinks that if he, does well with the demon army, he'll rise up in their ranks, and he can get Corey. At which point it's stated, as long as Corey was his, he didn't care if she had any free will or not. He saw her as little more than an object. Oh, good freaking God, Hayami. You are just the worst. And honestly, this whole volume, I'm back and forth on whether Hayami or Kauki was the worst. They both kind of suck. Anyway, at this point, the demon suggests a counter-offer. Okay, I won't kill Kauki. That seems to be the big problem we're having with this. And instead, I'll let him live. He's going to be a little more chained up than the rest of you. And at this point, Shizuka realizes this is her plan all along. The reason she didn't kill Kauki was for the bargaining chip, so she could say, okay, I'm going to kill him, and then take that away to make her deal sound even better, like she was giving them something. Though at this point, Kalki wakes up and tells him, everyone, run, I'll hold them off. No, you won't, because if you attempt to hold them off, the rest of the demons will just chase after your classmates and they'll all be brutally slaughtered. And they basically just straight up call him an idiot for thinking that he could do that, for thinking they could escape while he in his damaged state is still holding them off like that. Anyway, then Meld wakes up, and he tells them all just to surrender. It's not their fight. It was never their fight. They never should have been brought into this. At which point, he activates Loyalty's Pendant, which is basically a suicide vest that is worn by every high-ranking member of Highlake Kingdom and the Church. So to prevent their memories from being read by the demons, which... okay... that makes a certain amount of sense, but it's like I said, it's a suicide vest. It uses all their life force to make them basically explode. I feel like there's a problem with that. I feel like, if someone gets turned to the demon side, or if someone gets captured with demons and they don't have a chance to use the pendant, they can be brainwashed to, go into the capital, go into the throne room to talk with the king, to give the report, and then just, blow up, killing all the other high-ranking people around them. It just feels like it's overkill. Like, I could see a spell that, just kills them automatically, but this is a suicide attack that, blows up everything around you. It's just a very weird choice for a spell. Thankfully, though, the giant turtle named Absol managed to eat the spell. Yeah, that's his power. He can eat and absorb one spell and then store it to use later, which is actually a fairly interesting monster. I really like that. He's described as the bane of all mages. Anyway, then Meld is tossed aside, and Corey does her absolute darndest to try and heal him, but yeah, she can't. She's just not enough mana. But thankfully, this drives Kalki to such an overwhelming state of anger that he unleashes a whole new power, which even the demon has to say is a little too cliche, the hero unlocking new power just when he needs it. And he doesn't use Limit Break here, he uses the derivative skill of it, Overload, which instead of increasing his stats by 3, increases them by 5. But it doubles the damage to his body, and in his current state, he thinks he can only use it for about 30 seconds. So he charges the demon, it looks like he's about to beat her, and then she takes out her pendant, and he's like, oh no, it's Loyalty's pendant! She's gonna use it to kill us all! And he goes in for the blow, at which point he hears her say, I'm sorry, Mikhail. It looks like I'll be going on ahead of you. I love you. And Kalki just stops dead in his tracks. Because up to this point, he's been under the assumption that demons, they were just an advanced form of monsters because of Ishtar's teachings. That they weren't actually people. They didn't have any, love or friends or anything like that. And he even thinks to himself, maybe he just didn't want to imagine truth. Maybe he just didn't want to fully realize it. And it's not like he just misses the opportunity to attack, and the demon tossed him aside. No, the demon didn't even attack him. They have a full-on conversation about how demons are people too. So he had many, many chances to kill her, and just didn't. God, he's the worst. Anyway, at this point, the demons decide, you know what, this is too much trouble. If he unlock that new power, they might unlock crazy new powers too. They might be too much of a risk. I'm just gonna kill all of them. Starting with Shizuku, because she is by far the most dangerous here. Way more than Kalki. I do love Shizuku. She's braced herself for the fact that she knows at some point she's going to have to kill it. So she just needs to do it. She understood the cost and she is sickened by it. Which really best case, Kalki, he can't kill. He just isn't in him because he doesn't believe what a hero should do. That's going to get him killed. But on the other hand, if you're like Hajime and you just straight up kill anyone who gets in your way, you're a terrifying monster. Anyway, she isn't able to hold off too long because even though she's incredibly fast, the horse monster is just as fast as her, and she has very bad defense. So she's tossed aside, her arm's broken, she's coughing up blood, and Corey runs over to protect her. And Suzu makes a path for her, saying that no one wants to be alone in the end. Giving a silent apology to the rest of her classmates that they're going to die a little bit faster, just so that she can, let these two have a happy ending. So Corey dulls her pain, and her very last thought that she's about to die are that moonlit night, where she vowed to protect him. At which point the ceiling collapses, the monsters are dead, and her heart that had been encased in ice thawed in an instant, as she knew immediately that this was Hajime, this was the man that she loved. Though that feeling of elation and joy is then replaced fairly quickly by fear and dread as she realizes, oh no, Hajime's here, he's gonna die! Though that feeling is quickly replaced as she sees just how frickin' strong he is. And he gives the demon a chance, he gives her a chance, hey listen up, if you run away right now, I'm not gonna chase you. And she really should have taken the opportunity, solely because He broke through the floor of the labyrinth. That's not possible. Demons, humans alike know the labyrinth floors are literally unbreakable. You can't transmute them, you can't break them, it can't be done. Him doing it? Yeah, that means that he is something else. He is a monster, essentially. Anyway, then the Chimera shows up, and he picks it up and lifts it over his head like a little kitten. At which point the slaughter begins in earnest. So anyway, the fight against monsters is actually pretty pathetic for Hajime. In the second half of Labyrinth, he fought monsters with true invisibility, ones that were a real threat to him. But these guys, the shimmer is so obvious, it's actually pathetic. And he also has magic eye, which can see the body temperature in their aura, so it's like they're literally just standing out there in the open. Also, interesting enough, Yui doesn't really confront Hayami in the same way she does in the anime. She's like, are you getting in his way again? Here, as he's screaming that it can't possibly be Hajime, she douses him with water, and then basically tells him to shut up, and everyone's kind of like enraptured by her. She has this doll-like figure with an air of maturity. Suzu even whistles. And then later on, when Suzu is trying to cast a spell to protect them, Yui pats her head and says, don't worry. As she casts the spell, Sapphire Serpent, which turns Azora Blaze, one of the strongest fire spells into existence, into a dragon that wraps around them and eats all of the monsters. Which confuses everyone greatly, as this is a spell that shouldn't exist, a spell that defies basically all the laws of magic, which she cast with 0 incantation. So they realize very quickly, okay, so this girl's something else. And Hajime also uses crossbits to guard Kori and Shizuku, and they actually get into a debate about whether he's a human Gundam or a new type, which confuses Hajime so very, very much, as he's like, how do they know what a new type is? How do they know what a Gundam is? I'll talk about that a little bit more later. That's because of Kori's desperate attempt to get closer to Hajime. She learned as much as she could about the anime, manga, otaku world, and Shizuku kind of got dragged along for the ride. Anyway, then Demon tries to petrify him, and it doesn't work because one of the monsters he ate in the labyrinth also caused petrification, so by eating him, he became immune to its effect. So yay! He also had a crossbit waiting at the exit behind her, so yeah, she had no chance of escaping. Hajime also does some very impressive reasoning and realizes that the demons must have already cleared a labyrinth, that's where he got the power to control monsters, and that there is someone else like him who cleared a labyrinth and unlocked the ancient magic powers. Which seems like it'd be a threat to him. At the same time, Hajime said the Orcus Labyrinth was not supposed to be the first one you completed. It was supposed to be one you faced after you already cleared a bunch of the other ones first. So just because that person cleared a labyrinth doesn't mean they are anywhere near Hajime's level. It's also very interesting, the demon basically says she wouldn't want to be taken alive, and would kill herself, but she wants a warrior's death at the hands of her enemy. So Hajime killing her is exactly what she wants. Though Kauki's not a big fan of that plan, and even says, let's make her our prisoner. There's no way we can kill someone who can't resist. Heroes aren't supposed to do things like that. You're one of my comrades too, so shouldn't you be obeying my commands? Yeah, those are actually words spoken by Kauki after he saw Hajime fight, after he realized Hajime is way, way stronger than him. He thinks that Hajime should be subservient to him because he's the commander of the party. And you know, Hajime is actually shocked by this. He actually kind of takes a few seconds to try to process what he says, try to understand, did I just actually hear that correctly? Before eventually deciding, you know what, not worth it, and shoots the demon. And you know, Kauki, he tries to ask Hajime, how could you kill her like that? Hajime tries to think of an answer, decides, you know what, it's not worth it, so he just ignores him. Kauki asks him again a little bit later on, and he ignores him again, and instead cups Yui's cheek, thanks her for saving his classmates, and openly flirts with her on top of a pile of monster corpses. Which gets him a very cold glare from Kori. And as he attempts to ask a third time, he's interrupted by Kori, thanking him for saving all of them and asking if Meld's gonna be okay, since even she couldn't cure his wounds. Which, you know, I really like that her first question is about Meld. She is the healer, that is, you know, her duty, responsibility. And Hajime does justify it to himself, you know, using the ambrosia to cure Meld because if he dies, someone way less honorable than him might replace him, and that'd just be a huge pain, and could lead his classmates doing a lot of awful things under the guise of justice and the orders of the Holy Church and whatnot. And then she has her whole little breakdown, crying, thanking him for staying alive, apologizing for not protecting him, and just, embracing him and crying and crying. And the whole class gets this warm, fuzzy feeling as they're watching her finally embracing the man she loves. And Hayami is really ticked off about it. And then Kaoki decides to interrupt the moment because he really can't read the room, at all. And says, "You really are kind, Corey. Still, Nagamo mercilessly killed someone who couldn't resist. We can't just ignore what he did. Please get away from him." Which just leads to everyone essentially glaring at him and screaming in their own heads, "Read the room, moron!" Oh, God. And Hayami managed to get a bunch of students on Kaoki's side, saying Hajime was in the wrong, saying Hajime shouldn't have done it, saying Hajime was bad here. Even though, he just saved all their lives because his classmates suck. And this could have definitely led to an interesting encounter, but instead Yui just popped up and said, "What a useless bunch. Can we go now?" And Hajime's like, "Hey, yeah, let's leave." So they start heading out of the labyrinth, and Meld asks if they can follow him, and Hajime's nice enough to allow it. And, Kaoki, in the whole way up here, he just will not let it go. To the point where Hajime literally has to put a gun to his head, full intimidate him, and say, "If you try to stop me, if you get in my way, I will make you my enemy, and I will kill you." And you just gotta love Yui's line here. "All you did was cower and run away. The loser has no right to say anything." Because turns out, Hajime and the rest of them, they were watching the fight from up above. They saw what was going on, and they thought, Hajime didn't want to get involved, didn't want to get any closer to God's chosen warrior. So he thought, okay, he unlocked Overload, it looks like he's gonna kill the demon, it's gonna be fine, I don't have to do anything. Maybe he would have sent down Endo with a little bit of ambrosia to save Meld or anyone else who was in danger. Which I think would have been way cooler if Endo came back with a super strong potion that Hajime gave to him. He's still alive, super strong. So he had a whole harem around to just add this air of mystery to him, to all his classmates, that he tried to figure out what exactly is going on. But no, Hajime saw that Kaoki didn't have an enemy, couldn't kill the demon, and then as a result, the entire class was almost murdered. At this point, Mel pops in and literally prostrates himself for Hajime, apologizing for not coming back for him, apologizing for letting him die like that, and thanks him. He then also apologizes to Kaoki and explains to him, "Yeah, I was supposed to actually have you attacked by some bandits to give you some experience in killing people, but I just never got around to it. I couldn't do it to you guys." And at this point, Kaoki realizes, for the first time, since coming to this world and being told that he had to fight in a war, that he would need to kill people. Wow, he's dense. Anyway, now I want to talk a little about Corey, because she is very shaken by this whole experience. I mean, seriously, the anime basically turned her into a joke where she was just annoyed that he had a child the whole time in Labyrinth. No, she is really scared by how much he's changed, wondering if there's any part of the old him left. She's actually shaken by it. She's not really sure what to say about him. And she's really questioning her feelings, her emotions, if she still can love him, if there's still any part of the old him left. And Yui is able to sense this, and she turns to her as they're walking out of Labyrinth, and she says, "If your feelings for Hajime are that superficial, then you may as well just forget about him." And this really ticks her off. I mean, seriously. But she can't really say anything because she knows that her feelings are wavering here, and she's questioning if it's really enough. Also, as they're making their way out of Labyrinth, all of the classmates are starting to realize, yeah, I kind of get why Hajime doesn't like us, why he doesn't call us his comrades. We did kind of ignore him while he was being bullied and almost murdered a few times. I mean, that's our bad. Though I will give it to the classmates. They certainly had some balls trying to go after Hajime's girls, trying to get them to talk, trying to, I guess, get a date with them, maybe? Does not go well. They completely ignore the classmates to the point where Hayami actually grabs Shia's arm and Hajime shoots him. Sadly, it's only with a rubber bullet, but it's still something. Anyway, then as they reach the entrance of the labyrinth, they hear a voice. "Ah, Daddy, you're back!" As Miyu runs forward and jumps into Hajime's arms, and this, quite frankly, is more shocking than his strength. And they are all very confused, and they are all too shocked and too tired to realize that in the 4 months that he's been gone, there's no way he has had a chance to have a 4-year-old daughter. Which leads to Corey grabbing and screaming at him for quite a while, and a whole lot of rumors forming around as everyone is watching this in the town, Eventually, it reached the point where everyone's saying, oh, he has a wife, as well as 10 pregnant girls in his harem. Shizuku, thankfully, has a fairly calm mind, is able to pull her away and convince Corey he can't have a 4-year-old child already. At which point, she becomes very, very embarrassed. And Hajime's a little irked that, Miyu got away from Tio, but Tio has to explain that she had to separate herself from Miyu after a group of kidnappers attempted to snatch her away. And Tio had to go punish them. They are then faced with 10 more men who block their way, who are friends of the kidnappers, who want revenge for, whatever the heck Tio did to them, and I can't imagine it was anything good. And then they make a very, very bad mistake. Basically, they see all the pretty girls around Hajime, and say, leave the women, we'll return them once they've apologized, but you should know they'll probably be broken. And then as they all start laughing, Kalki wants to go punish them for their crimes. But instead, he is sent to his knees as Hajime unleashes his full intimidation. And all 10 of those guys start begging for their lives as they realize they've just ticked off the wrong guy. And his punishment for them? He shoots all 10 of them in the balls. Yep. I mean, I guess that's better than killing them. Or maybe worse. That might actually be worse than killing them, yeah. And even Tio was kind of overwhelmed by the thought of how much pain they must have been in right then and there. Oh, I would have loved to see that in the anime. Anyway, then as Corey's watching this and she's kind of taken back by how violent he is, she realizes that he always resorts to violence. He always does what he needs to do in order to protect the things that matter to him. Yes, his own life, but also the girls, the people around him. He's doing it to keep them safe. And that if he truly was unkind, he wouldn't have such great companions, such happy people around him. Also, Miyu just absolutely adores him. Plus, he'd come back to save them, and even use his rare medicine to save Meld. And she realizes that despite all he's been through, he could still make others smile. So she's filled with a new sense of determination and is ready to enter the battlefield of love. And I just love how she does it. She says, Hajime, can I join your party? Brother, I'm coming no matter what you say. Thank you for having me. And Hajime is a little taken back by this. And even when Hajime rejects her, I do love her response. Basically, she says, even if you don't return their feelings, she and Tio are in love with you and you let them travel with you. And my feelings for you are stronger than anyone's. And Yui accepts her as a rival. And everyone's kind of confused why there's a sudden appearance of a dragon of thunder and a demon. Hajime wants to say something here, but he remembers that wise men know when to hold their tongues. Anyway, then Kalki interjects and accuses Hajime of brainwashing Corey. Yes, because clearly she would only be in love with him if she was brainwashed. He even pulls out his sword until Shizuku stops him and has to explain to him that she has always been in love with him. And Kalki's response to that is true, but really strips off the whole hero polish he has. How could she possibly be in love with that lazy, uncooperative otaku? Wow, that's just awful. Yes, that is I mean, like I said, that is true, but still, that's not something you can say and still look like the good guy here. Everyone is all happy for her, sending her off with a smile. But Kalki just keeps digging the hole even worse, saying that because you're my childhood friend, you're supposed to be with me forever. That's how it works, Corey. That is, Corey has to respond, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's not even a factor in deciding where I go. And Kalki is filled with jealousy for the first time. And he says something so awful, so terrible. I actually need to read it out loud because there's no other way I can really just put it into words better than how it was actually said. Corey, you can't go with Nagumo. I'm saying this for your own good. Look at him. He has girls all around him, and he's even got a daughter. Worst of all, he's put a slave collar on that rabbit girl, and that black-haired girl called Nagumo her master. He's probably forcing them to come with him. He probably thinks girls are nothing more than objects to add to his collection. He's scum. Look at how easily he kills people, and even though he's so strong, he's refusing to help us, his comrades. Going with him only bring you misfortune. It's better if you stay with us. No, I'll make sure you stay with us. Even if you hate me for it, it's for your own good. I won't let you go no matter what. Just Jesus. He then turns to the girls around Hajime and says this. You girls shouldn't stay with him. Come with me. Our party would love to have people as strong as you. We can save the human race together. You said your name was Shia, right? Don't worry, if you come with me, I'll free you right away. We don't keep slaves here. You too, Tio. You won't have to call Nagamo your master any longer. And the girls, they just turn away from him in absolute disgust. They're actually mentally scarred by how disgusted they are at Kauki's words. And he is just utterly taken aback. No one has ever failed to be charmed by him. He can't even process what's happening here. So at this point, he's filled with such an overwhelming sense of rage that he challenges Hajime to a duel. He knows he can't beat Hajime's guns, but he's absolutely convinced that his stats are higher than his. So he makes it a no-weapon duel, and if he wins, then he will never go near Cory and free those girls he's holding captive. And I don't really need to say how this duel went, because I'm assuming you can all already figure that did not go well for Kauki. As he rushes forth to Hajime, Hajime takes a step back, uses a transmutation on a circle to dig a hole in the ground, and Kauki falls in it. He then covers the hole, but before he does that, he throws in a flashbang grenade, a tear gas grenade, a noise grenade, and a paralysis grenade. Essentially stripping Kauki of every one of his senses and being forced to go through the pain without even the ability to writhe in agony. Wow! I would have loved to see that in the anime. I would have really, really loved to see that in the anime. He then asked Shizuku to dig him up, as there's always been an implicit rule, even in Japan, that it was her job to clean up Kauki's messes. Then, fun fact, Hayami goes to Hajime and pleads for him not to take their healer. Which, I'm not gonna lie, this guy's got some fairly impressive balls. Coming up to a killer that he used to bully, someone he knows is not afraid to kill people, someone he just saw take out the strongest person he's ever met in a matter of seconds, and beg him for a favor. Wow, Hayami, a little impressed there. Though Hajime does take his opportunity to question about throwing fireballs, and Hayami realizes, oh, he knows I tried to kill him. Okay, never mind, and he just runs away as he turns pale as a sheet. Hajime decides it's not worth the trouble killing him with Brain, because he knows that would just, enrage Kauki and have him come after him for revenge, and that would just be a headache. And then Hajime goes to face the rest of his classmates and gives his own little goodbye. I don't want your apologies, and I don't care about what happened in the past. As far as I'm concerned, you guys are worthless. The same goes for anything you have to say. If you understand, then get out of my sight. You're all eyesores. Wow! Though a surprising number of them still, come to see him off, though that's actually right away. He doesn't stay the night, he doesn't, spend the time with his classmates. He leaves instantly as soon as this is all done. Though before he goes, Shizuku uses the opportunity to use Hajime's greatest weakness against him, her ultimate trump card. The thing that all otakus fear, corny nicknames. Alabastar Executioner, Devastator, Lord of All Destruction, Obsidian Tyrant, Crimson Thunder Synergist, Eulogy of Demise, Shotgun Chaos, Disaster of Disasters, Reverse Calamity. And basically the threat is that if Hajime hurts Cory in any way along their journey, then she is going to use her authority as one of the legendary heroes to spread around the most embarrassingly awful nickname about Hajime that she can think of, and he will just basically have to kill himself in shame. So yeah, all the time she was dragged around having to read manga and watch anime, it's certainly come in handy here. He also then gives her a sword, a proper katana that can slice through steel and will never break. And this is the one of the very few times where I think the anime did it better, because in the anime he gave her the sword while they were still in the labyrinth, and she was actually able to use it then and there, show off what she could do. I like that. I thought that was a big improvement on this. But also, fun facts, the weapon is way, way stronger than I realized. In fact, when she shows it to a blacksmith, he declares that it is stronger than any weapon in the kingdom's treasury. And then in terms of strength and precision, it far outclasses Kauki's own holy blade, even though it's not as good at deflecting magic. So yeah, besides whatever Hajime has on him, it's literally the strongest weapon in the entire world. Oh, and there's more! It can create a 60-centimeter blade of wind and shoot out other wind blades like shockwaves. Also, the sheath can cover itself in lightning and shoot out needles at supersonic speeds. Only problem, though, is that there are no magic circles on it, so she can't actually activate any of those abilities. Hajime made it for himself when, he could actually use them by manipulating mana directly. Shizuku can't do that, so she couldn't use any of those abilities, until she took it to the kingdom's greatest blacksmiths, who spent 3 days straight adding magic circles to it. So, yeah, it's now the greatest weapon in the entire world, basically. Like I said, besides whatever Hajime has on him. And then they depart for the Grand Grune Volcano. Anyway, in the epilogue, Hayami is meeting in the park with the people who are blackmailing him. He's been following their orders, they get Cory in return, and their final stages of their plan will take place once they get back to the capital. No idea who these two classmates are. My best guess right now is Eri and Suzu. Eri was able to use necromancy magic even though she said she never actually practiced before to an impressive degree. And even though Suzu was apparently completely drained, she was still using pretty impressive spells to save Cory. And that would definitely make a certain amount of sense. So now their big deal plan is to put the classmates in danger so that Cory hears about it and she has to come back and then they can find a way to capture her and kill Hajime somehow. Shizuku and Kaoki then have a nice little heart-to-heart together, where he has to be explained very slowly that Cory belongs to no one and she goes with whoever she wants to be with. She's not an object. So in a lot of ways, Kaoki and Hayami both viewed her as essentially an object, something that they had property of, which is very interesting and very disturbing. And as Shizuku walks away, he realizes that Cory has become like the moon, something that he can never reach, but Shizuku is still there. Maybe he can still attain her. Which, a little shaky on that. I'm not sure if this is, a chance for him to redeem himself, a chance for him to grow, a chance for him to reflect on all the awful, terrible things he's done, or if he's just gonna, become worse after this. Definitely have no problem imagining Ishtar convincing him, oh, no, the demons don't actually have lovers. That was just the trick that she used to deceive you, or something like that. And that actually seems very likely, because 3 weeks later, when they're all back in the capital, Shizuku meets with Aiko, and finds out that Hajime has been declared a heretic. Essentially, he is an enemy of the church, and therefore it is completely legal to murder him or enslave him. Which, problematic, also means they're going to send out holy paladins and entire armies to try and kill him. And if that doesn't work, they're going to send out the students to do it. Which, I could definitely see them convincing Kaoki to do it, but he doesn't really stand a chance against them whatsoever. The bigger concern, though, is the fact that, since Hajime was decreed to be the goddess's sword, there's a fairly good chance that people are also starting to view Aiko as a heretic as well. I can certainly see them, going to the villages that she helped increase their farming and, burning them to the ground, saying, this village has the touch of a heretic, it must die, it must burn! Something like that. That's very possible. Also, while they're talking, they talk about Hajime. Aiko's glad he's learning to become kind all over again, or perhaps awakening his old self, and Shizuku notices that she's starting to blush, and she gets really irked as she realizes that Hajime's tendency to unconsciously make girls fall in love with him had become even worse than Kaoki's, which is probably one of the best lines in this entire series. Though she's fairly certain that Hajime didn't realize that Aiko fell in love with him. Anyway, then they make a plan. At dinner that night, she's going to announce to everyone the truth, that the gods are using them as their playthings, that they can't trust the church, anyone in it. And that would have gone fairly well, I imagine, except on her way to dinner, she's interrupted by a high priestess who knocks her unconscious and drags her away. Which, concerning. Thankfully, Endo is in the hallway, heard the whole thing, and he's going to go tell his classmates, yeah, a high priestess knocked out Aiko and dragged her away, so if the church says that Hajime kidnapped her, or the demons kidnapped her, that's a lie. It was really the church itself that did it. We also get a few post-credit stories. First one is all about how Cory met Hajime. And we got in piece of this in the past, but this is the first time we got the full story. Essentially, these 3 college thugs were bullying an old lady and her grandson for spilling a little bit of food on his jeans. And Cory's just standing there with everyone else, everyone thinking, oh, one of us should intervene. Yep, we really should. She's kind of mad at everyone for not doing something, also mad at herself for not doing anything. And she wants to call Shizuku, Kaoki, Ryutaro, one of them, to come give backup, but she knows they never would get there in time. And as she's pleading, begging for someone to do something inside her own head, Hajime walks up and tries to defuse the situation. And then the thugs kick him a lot. So he says, all right, I guess we have to handle this another way. And they're like, oh, is this kid like a martial artist? He's going to fight? And the 3 thugs, get in fighting stances, ready for whatever's coming next. And Hajime straight up prostrates himself on the ground, begging for their mercy in the most pathetic way imaginable, creating a whole crazy story about how these thugs are asking $10 million for the damage to their jeans. Wait, we're not asking that much. And even a whole background story for the old lady who lost her husband last year, and the old lady's thinking to herself, wait a minute, my husband's still alive. And essentially, he just basically turns things around, so it looks like these thugs are the worst people on Earth, essentially threatening to murder the old lady if she doesn't give them 10 million. To the point where they're like, all right, if we don't leave right now, this is going to keep getting worse for us. Our reputation is already in shreds. Let's just go. And the thugs run away. At which point, Hajime gets up, dusts himself off, turns to the old lady, and says, sorry for turning into something awkward. Anyway, I'm going home now. Bye. And then he just runs away before the old lady can thank him, before anyone can say anything. They're all just kind of standing there like, did we really just see that? That really just happened? And then she goes home and after dinner calls up Shizuku and spends 4 straight hours gushing to her about how impressive this guy was and how she wants to be his friend. And Shizuku is just so amused because she realizes that she's in love, but she doesn't actually know that she's in love because she's never been in love before. And then she just becomes a straight up stalker, looking up the guy's uniform online, finding what school he goes to, and waiting outside the school every few days to see if she can find him. Never does, because it turns out he leaves as soon as the bell rings, so they never got there in time. And as all this is going on, Shizuku apologizes in her head for turning this guy's life upside down. And that is so very, very true. I mean, seriously. If Corey hadn't got involved with Hajime, he would have lived a very peaceful life. All the bullying and everything is because of Corey's liking him and all that. Anyway, finally, she gets the entrance ceremony for her high school. And as Kalki's giving his speech, all the girls are screaming his name. They are in love with him. He's basically already an idol to them. And everyone's starting to whisper, hey, how's that guy sleeping through all this? And as she turns around, she sees him. The boy of her dreams, the one she loves. And she, tries to make small talk with him. And she's like, it's so weird. Whenever I talk to him, he gets all nervous. Completely unaware of the fact that whenever she talks to him, all the boys in the class look at him as if they want to murder him. So Shizuku recommends, well, why don't you find out what he likes and start liking it too? So she goes to an anime store, and there's actually a line from a light novel. All she learned from her visit there was that there were a lot of anime girls with their panties visible. Which leads Corey to saying this line, Shizuku, based on what I learned, I think I need to show him my panties. Thank the gods, Shizuku talked him out of that and instead convinced Corey to ask him what his favorite ones were so she could start reading and watching those and they could have back and forth conversations about anime, manga, and all that. So, curious. I would like to see more of those conversations, more of them talking about that, because that's not something we've really seen very much of. It's usually just, him trying to rush the conversations because he's afraid of being killed. She also realizes after, he essentially dies, that only Hajime realized the true dangers of the world. That's the reason that as soon as he got to the world, he spent all of his time in the library and studying, trying to learn as much as he could so he could face the dangers. Because the rest of them, this was a fantasy. Some ways they could have fun and fight and get superpowers. To Hajime, he realized they could truly die, and he wanted to be prepared for anything. And good thing he did, because that ended up saving his life many times over. We also get a few mini short stories. First off is essentially Alice in Wonderland. Yui's Alice. She is obviously the White Rabbit. Tio is the Jabberwock. And Alice just goes through Wonderland, flattening and crushing everyone with her gravity magic, who calls her flat-chested. Until she meets the Mad Hatter, the greatest craftsman in all of Wonderland. And upon meeting him says, I've fallen in love with you. Will you marry me? To which he responds, gladly. And that leads to a war against the Queen of Hearts. Honestly, it's all very strange, very weird, and I would love to see it as an OVA. Second one is a Magic Academy Sports Festival, which turns into an obstacle course for Hajime as he is bound and gagged at the finish line. And once more, I just need to read a little excerpt from this. These are Shizuku's lines. She's the announcer / class president of all this. Hey, quit sending lightning dragons into the stands. Chairwoman, you can't transform here. Hey, don't use your fire breath. Corey, stop using the teachers as catapults. Just because you're healing them right after doesn't make it right. Shia, just because Corey can heal everyone doesn't give you the right to knock people around like pinballs. Oh no, one of the teachers got thrown right into the Pope's stand. I'm terribly sorry for how unruly the students are being. So yeah, just a whole lot of craziness there. Third one starts off with Ryutaru reenacting scenes from Die Hard 2 while naked in front of the mirror. Which somehow leads to Corey stealing a maid outfit, going back to her room, putting it on, and practicing sexy poses only to be so utterly embarrassed that she immediately starts taking it off. At which point she realizes that Shizuku has been in the room the entire time and saw every bit of it. Which led to the legendary story of Kori dressed as a maid chasing Shizuku through the halls of the castle. Yep. The fourth one is magic lessons. The girls want to learn from Yui exactly how to do magic, and the lessons are not helpful. Essentially, Yui says, if you go whoosh, it'll go zap. So yeah, Yui is such an overwhelming genius, she can't really explain it in terms they understand. Final story is actually one I really like and one I would really love to see in the anime. Essentially, Hajime has started the habit of when it's overcast at night, he goes up to Tio and asks, is it okay if I ride you tonight? Oh, she just absolutely loves it when he says that. So yeah, he's taken to riding Tio, in her dragon form obviously, through the sky at night because it's riding a freaking dragon! I don't think anyone watching this video would give up on the opportunity to ride a dragon. Tio even says it would be a simple matter for Hajime to create a flying artifact that he can ride on himself, but, you know, it's riding a dragon. Who wouldn't want to ride a dragon? Though Yui gets a little bit jealous this one time, demands that he stops, which leads to Hajime saying, hey, Tio, I'm your master, so you're going to listen to any order I give. And she's like, of course, master, whatever you say. All right, Tio, I order you to leave that vampire in the dust. Which leads to a race through the clouds, Hajime on Tio's back, and Yui closing the distance, which I just absolutely love. Pleads for the love of all that is good and holy in this world. Let that appear in the anime. I'm actually kind of curious why they aren't fighting Tio more often. I make it be very suspicious. They only do it, you know, when it's overcast at night, but now they're, you know, branded heretics. I don't think it's be too much of an issue. But it feels that'd be way, way faster than driving a car or a motorcycle to get wherever they need to go. Though I do suppose he'd be a little hesitant to let Yui ride on Tio's back. I mean, really, Tio was asking Hajime to spank her arse quite a few times out of that whole chapter, and that was very awkward. Hajime even said it was starting to ruin the whole experience for him. So that was my, I guess, final cut content video. We're now caught up with the anime, and I'm very excited to start reading Volume 5, seeing what happens after the closure of the anime. Season 2 is coming out sometime, I think. Like I said in the last video, I heard July, but I think that's just a rumor. I haven't found any official sources that confirm that. Personally, I'd rather they not rush this. I really want them to give it their all. The first season was rushed and canceled and restarted a few times. They ended up having to do it on like half the time with half the budget, and that's why most of the monsters CGI and everything looks very, very bad. But hopefully, you know, with the right amount of time, with the right amount of effort, they can really make this shine. And I really think they did that in the first OVA. They really, you know, gave more outfits, gave the characters a chance to really show off their emotions, personality, and all that. Second one was basically just a clip show, but the parts that weren't clip show were very well animated, and I really like that, so we'll see what happens. But let me think of all this down below. What do you think was cut out? Anything you wish stayed in? I think quite a bit. I wish quite a bit of it stayed in, especially Hajime's duel with Kauki. That would have been absolutely amazing. Anything you're glad they cut out? Be sure to like, subscribe to the next video. And until then,
peace!